Resident Evil 4 is an amazing game, both the new and the old one. In the first 30 seconds of the original game, you get roasted as soon as you step out of the car.
Forget your makeup or something?
One of my favorite parts of the original is the opening scene. As soon as you walk into the house, the weird Ganado dude does a long turn instead of just quickly turning and facing you. I mean, look at that. That screams there's something wrong with this place. I think the remake did a great job on this scene as well. The long walk to the house really builds up tension, and after you quote-unquote kill the Ganado, watching it walk down the stairs with its neck broke is just awesome. And they do a good job portraying the same feeling in the remake that the original did in that scene. One of my favorite things about Resident Evil 4 is the atmosphere. It just does a good job of making you feel trapped and alone in this weird mountainous region out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. I think in both of them, the village does an awesome job in portraying that. I like the village fight scene in the remake. It pays a great homage to the original. It plays almost exactly the same, and it's still fun, and it has that eerie, creepy feeling of what the hell is happening. It has the chainsaw man. It has all the Ganados surrounding you. Leon goes into the house. He has to fight everyone. And then eventually the bell rings. And the scene that plays is good, just like the original. How the bell starts ringing and they all just stop and stare at the church and just start walking towards it. That is beautiful. That is creepy. That is so well done. Both the original and remake do it so good. I don't think I like one over the other. They both have their certain appeals. I mean, look at this. It's straight creepy.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Like I just said, the original basically plays the exact same as a remake. You go into the house, you fight the chainsaw dude, you have to fight all the Ganados, and then the bell rings and the cutscene plays out. But in my opinion, I think it plays a little bit differently, which of course it does. It's the original, but it has a certain appeal to it that's different than the remake. The remake has its own appeal, and the original has its own unique appeal as well. Just watch this and you'll see.
Oh, la campana. Es hora de rezar. Tenemos que irnos. Lord Sattler.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
I like how the remake expanded on the village and made it way more explorable. I think the original and remake villages are both good in their own ways. I like how in the original, it makes you feel claustrophobic with these narrow paths you have to take to go to each location in the village. While the remake is more open and explorable, where you can somewhat go off of the beaten path. It's just little details like that make both of these games so much more enjoyable. One of my favorite parts of the village in the remake is Mendez's house. I really like how they made it so creepy. And I also like how they kept the dude in the bathroom that was taking a piss. I think that's a nice attention to detail. That's just the first time you go to his house. What I really like about the remake is the second time you go to his house, whenever you do the Savage Mutt request. Now that was actually scary, I'm not gonna lie. Resident Evil did a good job on actually setting that up and scaring you. The music and the atmosphere was so creepy and eerie. You get there and it's all dark and all the lights are out. Whenever I first played it, I had my shotgun out. I was just walking through the kitchen, expecting the dog to jump out, but it never did. So then I just started to sweep the house very slowly. And then you slowly start to go up the stairs, thinking the dog's going to jump out of the hallway, but it never does. So then you go into the bedroom and there was just nothing except for creepy music and high tension. And you do the same thing going back downstairs through the house, thinking the damn dog's going to jump out of nowhere. But as soon as you walk out the front door, there's the dog on the other side of the gate. It was just playing with you, waiting and stalking you. Then you follow it all the way back to the main village. And then it turns out the dog is one of the hardest enemies in the game, and it kills you like 10 times because they made it really hard for some reason. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it has like a unique move set or something. I don't know. That dog's just gigantic. It's insane.
It's kind of funny.
The whole
Just
village area is
ran
good,
away there.
especially the Del Lago fight. I like how in the remake you could really explore all of the lake and the surrounding areas. You can do that in the originals, but there's not too much incentive to do so, and you don't get any awards. The remake did a great job on that. In the remake, you literally can go explore some half-sunken ship, and then you find, the Red 9, which the Red 9 is crap. It's actual shit in this game. If you use that, then I'm sorry, but it sucks. Blacktail's better. But really, the remake just did a great job on that whole area. And how they had you explore and do some puzzles and everything, it was really good. The atmosphere and music was just top notch in the remake on that part. The lake fight, lake area, everything was just, I'd say it was pretty much perfect. Especially since you can see the castle. As soon as you walk out and see the lake, the castle is just right in the background. They do such an awesome job with that. It's actually insane. The whole atmosphere of the game is just unmatched in both the remake and original. They're so similar but yet different. I don't know how they did that. Just in hindsight, the atmosphere in both games are just awesome. The village, the castle, and the island are all really good and set a certain mood. For some reason, one of my favorite things about the original game is right after you pass the church and you're walking on that little pathway, like the wood pathway, over the lake, there's just this certain feel you get, and it feels weird. And how everything works, and that sound of the wind, and everything is just really unique. I think the original does a really good job on setting the mood. With the ambient noises, it just brings it all together. If you sit there, you hear the wind, you see the fog, you see the trees and the mountains in the background, and you just feel trapped. It's so awesome. I think the remake does a real good job doing this too, but maybe it's just nostalgia. But the original to me is just something else in that category. It's just so good. The remake really sets the mood too. But I don't know if it's just the sound effects they used for the original or not, but those just hit differently. Especially the original death sound. Now, I think the castle is really well done in both, just like the village. The castle is more open in the remake and more tighter and controlled in the original. Whenever you first encounter the Gurader in the castle, it is just something else. You walk down these flight of stairs. You're in this little prison room. You're like, what the hell is happening? Okay, and then you see this dude chained up to the wall. A little cutscene plays and his eyes are just freaking stitched shut, and you're like, what the fuck is this dude doing? Why is he here? So you break down the door and you're like, oh wow, there's a lever right here. I guess I should pull that. So you're walking towards a lever and boom, he bursts out and starts attacking you. That is just what I love about the original. It's so natural. That's such a natural progression. In the remake, they tried to make it more creepy in a way, but in my opinion, it just kind of feels forced rather than having you naturally walk up to him and just find out yourself for what he is. Because they do it really good in the remake, but I think the original did such an awesome job with it, letting you just do everything in real time, if that makes sense. Because in the remake, you fall down, you know, they try to make it very cinematic, and it's a cutscene of him breaking free and everything, rather than you just walking up to him. I just like the actual gameplay feel of the original better in that sense, where you're still in control and you just don't know what's going to happen. You're on the edge of your seat. Anything can happen. It's not some safe cutscene, if you get what I mean. But I think I like the castle in the remake just a little more because you can just explore everything. And there's a good amount of going back and forth as well. At least in the little hub area right before you get captured and then you have to play as Ashley. That part right there, right before you get captured in the ballroom, I really like that part. Because it's doing the classic Resident Evil 1 thing. Somewhat. Where you go back and forth, exploring these halls, these rooms, doing some puzzles. Some random enemies are going to come out at you. It just does it so good in the remake. I think they nailed that perfectly. While the original did have you going back and forth, solving puzzles, getting these things, backtracking, it was more controlled. You just kind of kept moving forward in a sense, just keep progressing in the castle. And while it's still tight and controlled, it still works out great for the game. The original still has amazing pacing, amazing everything. The atmosphere is beautiful. It just works. In Resident Evil 4, it just works. The two games are different, but they're the same in a lot of the things. It just works. Like Todd Howard says, the tonal shifts of these two games are just awesome to me. You have Resident Evil 4 Remake, where it's more expanded, more open, more everything. Then you have Resident Evil 4, where it's more controlled. You gotta go do this, and it keeps pushing you. The part of the castle in the remake where you run and dodge stuff from the El Gigante was really fun. It was literally like something straight out of Dark Souls. Like that dude in Dark Souls 1 that's throwing those stupid fire boulder bombs at you. Or the stupid ass Dark Souls 3 tower dude that throws those spears at you. I hated that dude. That part was really good. I think they did an awesome job on that, and that was a great addition. The original did not have that. But what the original did have was an amazing maze area. That maze in the original was creepy as fuck. The remake maze was really good and creepy, but the original is on a whole nother plane. Walking into the maze with no music other than crows and the wind was something else. And then, while you're walking on the edge of your seat, a random ass dog just jumps out of nowhere and attacks you with the Las Plagas bursting out of its back. That's just something else. That whole maze in the original had me on the edge of my seat. I remember whenever I was real young, I couldn't even finish it. Like legit, I was like, dude, I don't even know how old I was. Probably like 11 or 10 maybe. I'd say 10. And I played the maze part, and I could not finish it. I could not get past it. It was so scary. I think the remake does an excellent job of doing the same thing, but there's just something about the original that creeps me out. Those dogs in Resident Evil 4 are just creepy. Like, you look at them, okay? And they're just sitting there drooling out of the mouth, shaking, you know, crazy looking. They are just, they're scary, bro. They are insane. And I think the originals just did an awesome job on that. Through the whole castle, the whole game, setting the tone. The remakes does an awesome job as well. They do it better in some areas, but sometimes the original is just unmatched. In my opinion, it's just unmatched. You can't get that anywhere else. And like I said, I don't know if it's nostalgia or what, but it's just something. It's just creepy and eerie. Now that brings me into the island part. It's the black sheep of Resident Evil 4. Personally, the island was alright in the original. I would not say creepy. It wasn't creepy at all, considering you have dudes walking around with miniguns. And as you can tell, I wasn't really too fond of the island, considering I'm doing a skip right now on the original game. The remake really did the island justice, made it way much better. And while most of the island I don't like, there is one scary part of the island. And I think that enemy is one of the scariest things in media. And that is the regenerators. Those are terrifying. The original regenerators are terrifying. The first time you encounter one is something you will never forget about. You're literally in a small room, and whenever you're about to walk out, this tall, gray monster starts walking towards you with arms as long as Anthony Davis while breathing heavily and shaking. Whenever you're about to walk out of the room and that bitch opens the door, you see it and freak out, and you don't know what to do. That whole section is just a masterpiece. Every time you deal with a regenerator in the original, it is just so scary. Especially the Iron Maidens. I mean, look at them. They're the same thing, but with freaking spikes coming out of them. what makes the original Regenerators real scary is how they walk and shake. I don't know why, but seeing the Regenerator walk goofy while shaking and breathing weird just does not sit right with me no matter what. The remake did good on the Regenerators, but the originals just cannot be matched. The originals cannot be matched. Them walking, breathing, shaking, looking goofy, just all perfectly blend together to bring you one of the scariest monsters, in my opinion. It's just insane. Now, upon replaying the remake and original both back to back for this video, the remake Regenerators actually stand up to the originals, I think now. They do such a good job at portraying it. They do a fantastic job. The remake Regenerators are the same amount of scary, I think, now as the original after replaying it. How they made the Regenerators act even crazier. They can just have a random burst of speed and sprint at you and just grab you and start eating you in the remake. It's actually crazy. And they look damn scary as well. The rest of the island in the original is alright, except for whenever Krauser's on the screen. All those interactions and fights are badass. They're actiony, but in a good way. It still gives off this creepy, cool vibe that fits so well with the atmosphere of the island. I think the island is much better in the remake. They made the whole island somewhat creepy, and I think they did the Regenerators justice. Don't get me wrong, the island's still over the top in the remake, but in a good way. It still had me going through corridors, hallways, creeped out, not knowing what to expect. And it did not do that in the original. For most of the island. In the remake, most of the time you're still doing the same thing. Being careful and creeped out. I am glad they still kept action on the island in the remake because that's just part of the game. Even though it's not the best, they really did it justice in the remake by giving it a good blend of horror and action. Alright, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I like QuickTime events. I know, hate me. I like QuickTime events. They're good, okay? Not like a Resident Evil 6 QuickTime events. Those are actual shit, okay? Those suck. But Resident Evil 4 QuickTime events, the original, okay? They really hit the nail on the head with the QTEs in the original. I know people hate them, but I just love QTEs. I know almost everyone hates these, even more the gameplay QTEs. But I like cutscene QTEs, okay? Hate me. Cutscene QTEs make Resident Evil 4 awesome. Like, it elevates the game, I think. Because whenever you're in the village and the Ganados try to crush you with a boulder and you have to Indiana Jones run and jump out of the way, that's goofy, okay? That's fun. And the original did such a good job on that. Or the Del Lago fight, where if you get knocked out of the boat, you have to spam a button to get back to the boat, and it just adds more tension. And after you defeat him, you have to cut the rope off of your foot, or you're going to be dragged under the water. And I think the original just did a real good job on the QTEs. It was fantastic. It wasn't over the top like RE6. It wasn't too little to where it didn't matter. It was just right and made it engaging and fun. I'm glad they kept some form of QTEs in the remake. Like whenever you get grabbed and things like that, it really made me happy. And I think they did a good job on those. But sadly, of course, they took out the cutscene QTEs and more of the intense gameplay ones. But I'm glad they kept core QTEs in the remake. If they completely took out the QTEs in the remake, I'm sorry, but the game would have been crap. It just would have been, dog shit. The game would have sucked. But having some QTEs, it elevated it. It made it awesome. I love the combat in both of the games. They're both good. And I love how you can melee the enemies. I've always loved that in the Resident Evil games. Especially the original. Whenever you go up and kick some Ganado or any of the enemies in the face, Leon does his signature grunt noise. And it is just ingrained into my head. It's beautiful. I do really love the knife gameplay in the remake, especially how you can parry. That was such a good mechanic they added. But honestly, at first, whenever I saw that, I thought it was going to make the game easy, like Resident Evil 3 Remake. We don't talk about that. But I was so glad I was wrong. It really made the gameplay fun. And it added a deeper element in the game. And it really elevated stronger enemies and boss fights, especially ones with melee weapons, that would just hit you with this combo of attacks. And you could parry them and block them and just do a cool combo or follow-up attack on it. It just really made the combat so much more fun. The original did not have that deep of combat, especially the knife mechanics. But what it did have was good QTEs. I think that's where it made up for the lack of deep combat. With the remake's more in-depth combat bundled with some QTEs, it's a really fun game to play. It is really fun to play. They did it perfectly. The original still holds up really well. I still play it. I love the original. But I think the remake really elevated it on a different level. Now, going on to bosses, personally, I like the Mendez fight in the original better, but mainly for how it opens. You walk into this barn, this random ass barn, out in the middle of nowhere. I don't even know why Leon walks into the barn. He just sees a barn and walks into it, just for no reason. But whenever you walk into the barn, he's literally right behind you, and he just grabs you. Just starts manhandling you, and then just throws you at a beam like a little bitch. Then he just turns around, grabs the handles on the freaking door and just twists them, showing his strength. Then he just turns around, starts walking towards you, and then that gives you a chance. You can dodge him by pressing a fun cutscene QTE, which is cool and fun. And then whenever you successfully do it, you dodge him and you kick a barrel down, shoot it, say a one-liner, and blow up the barn. That is cool. That is fun. That is real cool. I think the remake wasn't as cool in that scene, but it was still fun. The fight was fun in the remake with the deeper combat, but one thing I think the remake had a problem with, felt a little easier, probably just because it had the updated gameplay where you can actually move and shoot. I think the first phase was fun in both of the games. Both of the games had a real good first phase, but the second phase of the boss fight was way easier in the remake. You literally just have to move left and right and dodge the things he throws at you. And then for some reason he picks up some explosive barrels and then you can just shoot him. To be fair, I think the original game's second phase of Mendez was easy as well, because you literally just stand there with the clunky controls and just spray him. But overall, I think both games did a real good job on him. El Gigante was good in both. There's not really much to say about it. It wasn't too much different. The dog shows up if you saved it earlier. The fight pretty much plays the same, and there's honestly a couple bosses that are pretty much identical to the original, which is good, because if it's, not broke, no reason to change it. One of the things I did like that they changed in the remake was the Chainsaw Sister boss fight. I think it was better than the original, but actually, I never really took that route that leads to them in the original, because I always chose to run from the El Gigante, because I thought it was just easier. You literally just run from the El Gigante, break the chains on the doors, kick it down, and just do that for like, what, 3-4 times, and then you're out. Pretty easy, not gonna lie. But in the remake, the Chainsaw Sisters was really fun, and that was a good boss fight, because you tell Ashley to get in some locker, some dirty ass locker, and then you jump down only to find there's a lever right there conveniently placed. So you go over and, oh look, a lever. You pick it up, and then you almost get your head chopped off, and then Leon does some cool running wall backflip. That was just beautiful and fun.
Monsters. Guess after this, there'll be one less to worry about.
Now moving on to the castle, the fight with Salazar was fun in both of them. I did prefer the original over the remake, but after recently just playing the remake again to make this video, it kind of grew on me, and especially whenever I'm playing it in professional, because in the original, you just dodge his hands, tentacle things, whatever, and then you just shoot him whenever his thing opens up and you can shoot him. And that's honestly about it for the original Salazar fight.
Such a fool, Mr. Kennedy, to have been bestowed with Lord Sadler's.
You talk too much.
Failed. You vulgar, utterly uncivilized mongrel.
In the remake, he's more agile, he moves around and stuff. It's still kind of easy in a way, because it's easy to cheese him, but it's still fun. I was going to say I like the original better, but now I kind of like both of them the same. I think the Vertigo fight was fun in both. It wasn't actually that much different from the original. You do the same stuff basically. That's kind of what I like about it. It's not too different. Now, the part of the castle where you play as Ashley, I actually really like. I liked it in the original, and I like it in the remake. I think they did a good job on that. There's not too much to say about it, because all in all, it's kind of the same, with just a little bit changed. But overall, I liked it. And Ashley as a whole in this game was really good. Ashley was good in this game. I don't get why everyone hated her in the original, because I personally, I didn't mind her. It was fun whenever she was with you, and you had to protect her. I mean, that was the whole point of the game, wasn't it? To protect her. And she was pretty good. I mean, yeah, it was annoying whenever she got kidnapped and stuff. It's even more annoying in the remake, except for the screaming part. I'm glad they took that out. But in the remake, she's so easy to get captured. I think the command where you make her stay further behind you actually just hurts you more. Because whenever I use that and I'm fighting a bunch of enemies, if I start to get swarmed or something and I start running away, Ashley just stands there while the enemies are coming. She doesn't, run or anything. She just stands there. Sometimes she runs towards the enemies, okay? I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And then she gets kidnapped, and you have to try to save her. Sometimes it's just better to have her right by you. But even then, she does the same crap. But overall, it's still fun. The Ashley gameplay, whenever you play as her, is fun. Escorting her isn't bad. It's fun. Except I've found on professional mode, For some reason, she's like stupid on Professional. I don't understand why. And she loves to get in front of my gun and I shoot her. And it's hard to shoot her in the remake. In the original, it was so easy. I mean, she had a health bar and everything. You could just go up and knife her, kill her, shoot her, do whatever, blow her up. In the remake, it's hard to do that. You can't just like shoot her on her own. You can only shoot her whenever there's enemies nearby and she's like in front of your gun or whenever she's getting took away. But for some reason on Professional, she just loves to get in front of my gun. No matter what I'm doing, I always blast her because she's stupid. But overall, it's fun. The Ashley gameplay, everything is fun.
We are just getting started, rookie.
Are you being controlled by that cult?
This has nothing to do with them. I'm a free man who made a choice.
Now, I think the Krauser fight in both are superb. The original, with its intense QTEs, and the remake with its real-time, in-depth knife fight. The remake first Krauser fight might honestly just edge out the cutscene QTE for me, purely because the knife fight is awesome. The fighting with the knife is so good. There's so much depth to it, and even while fighting, it's so cinematic, almost like a cutscene. How they're sitting there bantering and talking, having a conversation just like in the original. It was so good in the remake. But that cutscene fight is on another level too, with the QTEs. Man, it just made it good. Without the QTEs, it would have been a cool cutscene. The remake would have, beat it, blown out of the water. But since it has QTEs, it's right there for me. But the remake is better, I think, in that specific fight. I think the second Krauser fight is a really close call as well. I honestly wouldn't say one is better than the other. Rather, both are great in their own ways. It makes up for the lack of combat depth with its awesome gameplay and QTEs, while the remake handles it with in-depth combat while keeping some QTEs. It balances really well in both of them. You'll get a unique experience on both ends. Krauser has always been one of my favorite boss fights in the game anyways. He's just on the top of the list in my opinion. He's an awesome fight in both of the games. Now, this might be a hot take, but one thing I'm glad the remake removed was a U3 boss fight, and for good reason. That boss sucked in the original. I never liked it. Never once. I found it boring, and it was forgetful. Whenever I would go back and think about Resident Evil 4, the original, I would remember every single little detail except for the U3 boss fight. I always skipped over it. That boss just sucks. I'm sorry. That whole section right there, that boss sucks. But one thing I hate that they removed from the castle was a laser room. Okay, that laser room was awesome. I don't care if it was wacky and goofy. That was so cool. That was so cool. I can't believe they removed that. That would have been perfect for the remake, I think. Now, the last boss, Sadler, I think the fight was good in the remake, but I do prefer the original. The remake is good, but you just kind of run around, and while you're running, you just turn around, shoot him, and repeat, and that's all there really is to it. And don't get me wrong, you did do that in the original, but I think it was just so much better in the original. How it was laid out and everything, I think it was better. The Sadler fight wasn't bad. It just wasn't the greatest in both of the games, the original and remake. Because you have Krauser, you have Del Lago, you have El Gigante, all those really good bosses, Mendez, they're just really good. All the bosses in the game are good, except for U3. That boss sucks. I'm glad they took it out. But Sadler he was alright. That's all I gotta say about Sadler. His character was real fun and good, but the boss fight it wasn't the best. It was alright. Now, while we're on the topic of gameplay, I really want to talk about the guns of RE4. The guns are amazing. I'm not just talking about gameplay perspective, which they are. It's a really fun game to play and shoot the guns. It's really fun and satisfying, especially in the original. It has that nice sound to it. The remake has a nice sound to the guns as well. Awesome gameplay. But what I really love about it is the depth and detail they put into the guns in these games. Not just RE4, all of them. All of them have awesome guns. They really do their research on them. The upgrades you can do to them, how they function, how they sound. They're actually detailed weapons, and they're real fun to use. Actually, one of my favorite YouTubers, his name is KendoGunShop. He makes really great videos about guns in Resident Evil games. He goes real in depth with the guns of Resident Evil in all of the games. He goes over the gun. He goes in depth with all the attachments it has. He goes in depth with all the modifications about that specific gun on each different model. He tells you what its real life counterpart is. He goes in depth with it, and I think he makes real good videos, and they're real entertaining and fun to watch. You all should really go check him out. Overall, the gunplay in this game is just superb. I love it. The guns are so much fun in all of these games. Like, sometimes I just play Mercenaries just for the gunplay. Like, if I'm really feeling shooting guns in a game or something, I usually go to COD, Battlefield, some FPS shooter or something. But sometimes I also just go on Mercenaries on either RE4 or RE5 and just play Mercenaries because it's so good. The guns are so in-depth and the gameplay's fun. Now, I want to talk about the story a bit. The story is a little bit different in the remake from the original. It's not too wildly different, but it's different just enough. Ultimately, everything is the same. Sadler makes Krauser kidnap Ashley. Leon has to go find and rescue Ashley and then get her out of there. Sadler wants to use the Las Plagas to take over the world, infect everyone with the Las Plagas, everything like that. What makes it different is the execution. You know, the things I've said earlier on in the video of how they change stuff. You know, the whole point of the video, compare and contrast the two games. In the remake, I found Sadler takes a back seat on a big majority of the game. A lot of the story, he's not up front like he was in the original. Like, as soon as you get to the church and rescue Ashley, Sadler's right there. He gives you a whole speech, everything. Really good character development. I love the story in the original. Everything about the original story, I love it. And I love the characters in both of them. The characters are good. I think the characters and story was better in the original for the most part. Sadler had more of a personality in the original compared to the remake. He was more prevalent in the original. He showed up more. You clearly knew his objective. In the remake, he was more elusive. He was this mystery dude. But in the original, you see him pretty early on, and you know his objective. He straight up tells you at the church.
Oh, there's going to be one hell of a party when she returns home to her loving father. But before that, I thought I might bargain with the president for some donation. Believe it or not, it takes quite a lot of money to keep this church up and running.
All the interactions with every character, whether it be through Honnigan, Luis, Ashley. Well, I kind of think Ashley interactions were better in the remake, but Ada, Krauser, all of them, I think they were better in the original. And personally, I like the dialogue better in the original, especially Leon's snappy, funny comebacks that he has.
No thanks, bro.
He has that in the remake, but not as much as the original. And I really love Leon's attitude in the original. I get the remake Leon has PTSD, and he's trying his hardest to be lighthearted, but it's really hard with everything coming down on him. The situation he's in, it's more realistic, I'd say. But the original Leon is just something else. He's just funny, charismatic. He's way better with Ashley. I'm not gonna lie with that. The remake Leon does not know how to talk to Ashley. He does not know. The original Leon was raising her up. And I really like the original Salazar. I like the remake Salazar, but not as much as the original. The original Salazar was so much better. He was more prevalent, just like Sadler. He had a better personality, I think, in the original. He was kind of funny, quirky, cool, whatever, you know, while still being serious at times and threatening. And I really like that. They got that done so good in the original. In the remake, he's all the same, minus funny, but it's just not the same, I think. With all the characters in general, the original just did so much better, I think. Luis is different. I like both of them at the same time. In the original, he was cool. In the remake, he's cool, but they kind of made him like slimy, you know, secretive, which, I mean, that's what he is. And they did a good job at portraying that. But whenever you first meet him and stuff, for what they did, making him, you know, slimy, I can't trust him, stuff like that. They did a real good job at that because that's how I felt. I just prefer the original one in that sense. That's just my personal opinion. With Luis being more prevalent in the remake, I love that. And how you play with him, you know, he runs around with you for a short time. I like that. And I do like his personality once you get to know him in the remake. I really like his personality in the remake, you know, later on in the game whenever he's with you and stuff. Because you've kind of befriended him, you know, the short while you've known him, and then you all kind of talk and stuff, and it's real cool. I like that. It's like the remake Luis grows on you, because I do really like him now, especially after I just played the game again. I actually do really like him. He just grows on you, where the original Luis is just instantly, you know, cool and stuff. While the remake Luis is just grows on you, which I kind of like that. It's character progression. Now, both the remake and original Krausers I like. I don't really prefer one over the other. The original Krauser has less of a story about him and you know less about him. But the remake Krauser is more fleshed out and you know more about him. They're both unique in their own ways and I like both. Now, Ada, I'm not going to lie, I greatly prefer the original Ada, mainly for her story and everything like that, and how she interacts with Leon. I like it way better in the original. It feels more fluid and better, in my opinion. The remake Ada does a good job, and I like how she, you know, knows Lewis and everything. That's pretty cool. But I liked her better in the original. It's just my personal preference. But overall, both of the Adas are real good. Now Ashley, that's a hard one because I like both of the Ashleys. They're both unique in their own ways. And I really like how you interact with Ashley in the remake. And I like how it shows. the Las Plagas really taken over her. But Ashley and both of them are very unique and different. They're both good in their own ways and interact with Leon differently. And I think they both fit their respective games good. Although I do like how the original Ashley would flirt with Leon. And I really like the ending part where she asks him for some overtime. And then Leon, the Chad he is, rejects her because he's a simp for Ada. It's just little details like that I love. But overall, they're both good. The stories in the games are real good. I love them. The ending on both the original and remake are going to tie into Resident Evil 5 since Ada does not take the sample to Wesker. So, I mean, that's what happens in the original. So obviously there's going to be a Resident Evil 5. There really is. Overall, story's good. Game's good. Everything about Resident Evil 4 is good. The remake and the old one. The story, the characters, the guns, the gameplay, everything. The music in these games are amazing. The music, the ambient noises, everything tying together. The save music on the original. The first time I heard that, it was like something else. It is so beautiful. I still listen to it. It's amazing. The music in all of these games are just awesome. Overall, Resident Evil 4 is a masterclass game, both of them. I highly recommend playing both of them because they're both unique in their own ways. The original still holds up. Everything about it holds up. The story in the original, it's still relevant. I mean, they barely changed anything in the remake. The overall story is the same, essentially. It's just the things that happened during the game is different. Overall, the games are great. One of my favorite games, Resident Evil 4, both of them are top 3 games. You know, I love them. One of my favorite games ever. First Resident Evil I played was RE4. Scared the shit out of me, but I was excited to play it. It was awesome. The whole series is awesome, one of my favorites. I just highly recommend it. It is great. Play all of them, you know, play 1. I recommend playing 1, RE1 remake. If you really wanted to start with 4 or 2 remake. So yeah, that was my video essay review type thing on Resident Evil 4 remake and the original. I hope you all liked it. I enjoyed making this. I love talking about games I've played, analyzing them, you know, talking to my friends about them. That's like the whole reason why I made this video and channel is because, I mean, I already talk to my friends and tell them everything I like and dislike about the game and everything about it. I was like, you know what, why not just make a video? You know, something to do, fun, cool. And, you know, people could watch it and like it, or maybe hate it. You know, hate my opinions, who knows. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked it, leave a like. If you disliked it, leave a dislike. Those actually help. Tells me, you know, what to do better or not. Subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. I hope you all liked it. See y'all in the next one.